Hello and welcome. My name is Øystein, and together with my colleague Tom, we will show some really cool workflows of how to get your media from the field and into the production facility in a very quick and easy manner. To do that, we're going to use Sony XDCAM Air on the acquisition side. XDCAM Air has the functionality to actually upload the proxies right from the field, and then we can ingest those in the production environment. In our case, it is an Avid Media Central environment, but literally the Glookast solution will work with any production platform of the major brands. On the production side, we have a Glookast media producer. The media producer is a file-based ingest and transcode engine, and we're going to use that to first create the low res, then later create the high res once they become available. So with no further ado, I'm gonna send you over to my colleague Tom out in the field.
Hi there, my name's Tom and I am, as you can see, on a farm. This is an unusual place to do a broadcast technology demonstration from, but because we're doing wireless workflows, we felt it was important to come somewhere where there aren't a lot of wires. So the setup that I'm using for my quite literally in the field workflow is a Sony PXW-Z280, which is using its integrated Wi-Fi module to tether to my phone, which is providing it with a single SIM's worth of a fairly patchy 4G connection. We're quite a long way from any mast. But if you want to demonstrate that a system's going to work in difficult conditions, there's nothing like taking it to difficult conditions to do that. So with my camera here, when I hit record, I'm going to start recording the clip just like normal. The camera's been connected to the XDCAM Air service, and when I press stop, it's going to upload a proxy resolution of that clip to the XDCAM Air service. The proxy version is recorded onto an SD card right here, and that can be recorded at anywhere between 0.5 to 9 megabits per second, and the bigger versions of that clip can be full HD. The high bitrate version that stays on the S/S card for now is recorded as normal, and that can be, in this case, MPEG 250, but it could be XAVC Intra at 500 megabits if you want to. It doesn't really matter. So every time I shoot a clip, camera goes into record. Every time I press stop, it takes the proxy that it's just recorded, adds it to the job list, and starts to upload that. And even if it's not finished uploading one clip, I can still start shooting another one. And as the operator, I can see in the viewfinder that those clips have been added to the upload list. So in effect, as the clips leave the camera, they seamlessly end up within the Avid editing environment so that the team back at base can begin the edit before I've even managed to make it back to the car to start the journey home.
So just before we dive into the workflow in the production facility, I just want to give you a little bit of a heads up. So in pure 2020 style, I am not in the office. I'm actually sitting in my home here in Oslo. So Oslo, Norway. The production equipment, though, is in our case in Porto, in Portugal. That's where we have our European head office. So that in some ways actually doesn't matter. So with XDCAM, it's all in the cloud. So the media that Tom has been shooting is already made its way into the cloud. So right now in front of me, I can see that Tom has uploaded some of the proxies. Now, I'm not going to go into too much details of the XDCAM Air platform itself. And part of the reason is that I really don't have to, because I've set up my media producer to also watch this particular location. So, now, I mentioned earlier that Media Producer is a file-based ingest and transcode engine. So that means that I can set up different ingest workflows depending on what I want to achieve. So what I've done, and I'm not going to get too technical on the details here, but just want to show you very briefly the workflow that we set up. So basically, it's creating Avid MXFOP atoms. It is checking it into my Media Central platform. But I just want to point out as well is that I'm doing XDCAM HD 17.5. So that's actually a fairly high quality video stream, but with a very minimum impact on the storage and network traffic. So quite high quality for a low bandwidth solution. Now, if I can change hats, and I want to be looking at these clips. So I'm just going to change to a different computer in my Porto system, which happens to have Media Composer. I've got my Media Central window loaded and ready to go. So all I need to do is to hit refresh, and I can actually see that one of the clips are already ingested and the other one is marked as ingest in progress, or capture in progress, as Media Composer would refer to it as. So all I need to do is really to edit just like any other clip. And we can pull in the other one here as well. I see that this is going to be an amazing story out from a farm. Now, let me just point your attention here to the timeline window itself. So you could see that I've got the XDCAM HD 17.5, and many would argue that this is broadcast ready, but I do know that Tom eventually will get to a point where he can upload the high res as well. So then we can just return to Media Producer and get those files. But not for me to get ahead of myself, I'm gonna put you over back to Tom with the high res.
Hi there. So, as Oystein said, I'm now back from the field, and he's been able to start editing with the footage that I uploaded straight from the camera. It's now later in the day and I'm somewhere else. I could be at a hotel, I could be at a broadcast facility to upload the high bitrate footage from this S/S card. It being the summertime of 2020, of course, I am at home because that's where we all are. Fundamentally, my next part of the workflow is very simple. I take the contents of this card, I put it into this laptop, and I upload it to anywhere on the internet where Oystein has access to it. And from there, he can then finish the workflow off by relinking the footage. So I'll pass back to Oystein.
And we are back in Oslo. So Tom told me that he had now uploaded the high-res media from the XDCAM camera. And what I'm going to do is that we're going to return into Media Producer, where we're going to ingest the high-res now into the same folder in Media Central, and then we can do a quite simple relink inside of Media Composer to get the high-res ready for export and for playout. And back in the Media Producer interface, I've got a separate folder for the high-res that is synchronized on the server. And what I need to do is that I need to find either the same clips, in this case with these two that we ingested a proxy of earlier. If I'm not sure, or if my workflow requires it, I can obviously select all of the clips before we ingest them. But I'm going to select these two clips, and now the only difference to what we did earlier is that I'm going to select the high-res workflow. And there is one notable difference, and that is that I now have some extra metadata that I can assign to the clips. And this comes down to how the administrators will set up the system. So in this case, when the workflow got created, the system administrator said that nobody is allowed to ingest anything into the system of high res that doesn't have the camera operator and the location. Now, your workflow might be different. There may be other pieces of information that might be valuable. But in this case, we're going to type in Tom Crocker as the camera operator. And I know that he recorded this in Hampshire. So just going to type that in. And now when I ingest, it will be ingested with that extra piece of metadata attached to it. And as this media is coming in, I can swap to my Media Composer machine. Here we go. On this machine, we also have into play Access, which is the database tool of Avid. And I can also see right here in file locations. So just wanted to show you that the same assets, so the same clip as far as the editor is concerned, now exist in two different video resolutions. So one of them is the low res 17.5, which we used earlier in the sequence, and the other one is the XDCAM HD50, which is my high res, is the house format. So all I need to do on the Media Composer side of things, and this is my favorite method, there may be different ones that work, is to just take these two clips from the Interplay or the Media Central window, drag them into my bin, and in that case, it automatically relinked everything in my sequence. I didn't have to even kind of swap on the low res or the dynamic relink function. And I know it's the high res out of the lack of the burn-in timecode, which I told you that we did for the proxies or for the low res. And also in my timeline window, it says XDCAM HD50. So now I can continue to edit, add all my effects, graphics, and make a bit of a production out of it. And with that, kind of summarized a little bit of the quick workflow. So a little bit of a recap that Tom was out on the farm, filmed with XDCAM HD and XDCAM Air functionality that uploaded the proxies. Media Producer could grab those proxies and ingest them as a low bandwidth resolution into Media Central so that we could start to edit. And later, when the high-res became available, we just put them through the same process, but now to a high-res format, and then did the relink inside of Media Composer. All really simple, fast and efficient way of working with XDCAM Air and Glookast Media Producer.